Sections of this video are sponsored. Guardener has you growing vegetables to help defend a garden from all manner of pests, but I'll always feel bad when the snails show up, despite how often they kill me. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Simmiland is a god game where you fulfill the wishes of your worshippers by playing cards and transforming the world around them, though it's all too easy to accidentally kill everyone. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Tuin is an idle game about growing plants and fulfilling orders, but if you're too indecisive, you can easily lose your crops to rot. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. 7 Billion Humans is another programming game that makes my skills feel inadequate despite literally having a degree in the field. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Conan Chop Chop is a dungeon-crawling roguelike that would maybe be fun with friends, but solo is a largely boring affair. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Hokko Life feels rather soulless for an Animal Crossing-like, but I guess if you don't have a Switch, it might be worth trying. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Encased is a post-apocalyptic RPG reminiscent of the older Fallout games, and while it takes longer to get going than I'd want, it's at least interesting enough to explore for a while. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Omnibus is an arcade driving game that managed to overstay its welcome about 10 minutes after I started playing. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. OlliOlli World is another great arcade skateboarding game from Roll7, with tight controls and a great aesthetic, though with their future unclear it may well be the last one we get. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Space Scavenger is a roguelike I actually enjoy for once, where you're constantly grabbing new parts and redesigning your ship to help you escape back home. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Tribes of Midgard is a Norse-themed survival game which is clearly designed with multiplayer in mind, but is still decently fun on your own. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Assault Spy continues the trend of character action games I love but am terrible at, this time set in the surprisingly stylish world of corporate espionage. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Galactic Mining Corp puts you in the chair of CEO to a spacefaring mining company, with each successful quarry letting you hire new staff or upgrade your gear to make the next run even better. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Arx Fatalis is not actually a game I enjoy very much, but its ridiculously low price and importance within the immersive sim genre makes it worth picking up regardless. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Grow Song of the Evertree has some aspects I really enjoy, especially the creature designs, but the busy work is a little too busy for me to want to keep going. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Spiritfarer is a melancholic journey through the lands of death, where you're tasked with guiding souls on their path through the afterlife, with a lot more farming than I expected. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Dark Messiah of Might and Magic is a wonderfully fun RPG where you can constantly make up your own ways of dealing with threats, though it's almost completely broken on current systems. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. The Serpent Rogue would be a much better game if it stuck with its alchemical strengths rather than forcing you to engage with its dismal combat. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Returnal is a compelling mix of bullet hell roguelike and creepy horror, but with runs lasting as long as they do, it can feel like a real slog. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. black and white Bushido has a stylish take on platform fighters where even solo is surprisingly fun, though it would clearly be better with other people. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Fobia St. Dinfna Hotel wears its survival horror inspirations on its sleeve, but unless you're really itching for another one to play, this isn't the tastiest game to gorge on. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Othercide is a tactical RPG which positively oozes style, but is perhaps too punishing for my taste. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Scourgebringer is yet another indie roguelike which I'll enjoy for an hour but be too bad at to actually finish. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Fallout 76 is like eating a McDonald's cheeseburger while someone hits you in the face. Not satisfying to begin with and made all the worse by other people. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Shady Part of Me is less a puzzle platformer and more a puzzle game and platforming game combined, and manages to scratch that limbo inside itch. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Thronebreaker The Witcher Tale is probably great if you're a Witcher fan and lover of Gwent, but I'm neither of those and it's still pretty good. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Demon Turf is a 3D platformer heavily reminiscent of games like Spyro, which nails its presentation perfectly, also featuring cute demon girls. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Heroes Hour is a hybrid turn-based real-time strategy game which I had a lot of fun with until I broke it. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Rogue Lords has one interesting feature, but its slow pacing and confusing presentation makes it much less interesting than its contemporaries in the genre. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Biomutant is a game I played at Gamescom the day it was announced, and somehow 6 years later it's worse than it was then. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Monster Crown is less Pokemon at home and more Pokemon you got while on holiday from a guy on a side street who said it's totally the real thing, don't worry about it. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Resident Evil 4 Remake tells the story of an American man invading Europe to kill bingo-loving Spaniards. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Edge of Eternity is a sprawling RPG from a small team whose ambitions seem to exceed their capability, but it's worth trying at least. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Terra Nil is an environment-building strategy game I'd been looking forward to for years, and so far it's just as good as I hoped it would be. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Jurassic World Evolution 2 is a highly detailed and complex dinosaur park management sim, but I had more fun with Dino Island in 2002. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog is a free visual novel where all your favourite Sonic characters get together to finally murder Sonic. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Golden Light is a game I don't recommend to anyone and don't enjoy in the slightest, but I am glad it exists, if only for how weird it is. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Riot Civil Unrest is a game I got for free and I still feel like I paid too much for it. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. House Builder is a simulation game I could see people finding repetitive, but which I'm probably going to sink a ridiculous amount of time into. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Thanks to FreeMind SA for providing the key to this game. Revita is someone's favourite roguelike, but to me it just seems like all the rest, though it does have some nice vibes. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Sludge Life is a freeform exploration where you spray paint ghosts on any available surface and get high on mushrooms while a large bird watches. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Oni, Road to be the Mightiest Oni, is an action-adventure game with charming art direction, stale combat, and seemingly one song, but which is pretty neat despite its minor performance issues and bugs. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Thanks to Clouded Leopard Entertainment for providing the key to this game. Rollerdrome is a fast-paced and frenetic combat sports game that I enjoy playing, but which hurt my hands so much I can't play for long. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. The Life and Suffering of Sir Brant is a visual novel set in a theocratic dystopia where most choices leave you feeling hollow and helpless against your lot in life. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Aliens Fireteam Elite is a decently fun sci-fi spin on Left 4 Dead, but with accessibility options that are just straight broken, I don't feel comfortable recommending it. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Desktop Dungeons is a dungeon crawling management game which plays more like a puzzle game than you'd expect going in, and shares saves with its 3D remake so you can pick up whichever version takes your fancy. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Star Wars Jedi Survivor has some incredibly chunky performance on PC, and while it's fun so far, you should probably wait to pick it up until it's fixed. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Founder's Fortune is a game I could enjoy if I understood what was going on, but instead I had more fun just letting everyone die. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Last Call BBS is the final game from Zachtronics, featuring a collection of drastically different games and an awful lot of waiting. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Main Assembly is a great way of getting into the concepts of mechanics in programming with a decent number of challenges and cute presentation, though it does control a little weird. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Behind the Frame, The Finest Scenery is shorter than I'd expected, but keeps the quality high throughout, both in story and its fantastic animations. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. The Invisible Hand is a game about trading stocks which bored me to the point where I just couldn't keep going. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a game I had low hopes for considering my distaste for Breath of the Wild, and so far it seems like more of the same, but it's a new Zelda game, so you've probably already bought it. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Builder Simulator is what you'd get if the Borderlands writers decided to make a construction game, and the presentation is just as grating here as it is there. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Warhammer 40,000 Chaos Gate Demon Hunters is basically an even edgier XCOM game, but with a lot more Y'shtola than I was expecting. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Windjammers 2 would probably be a lot of fun with friends, but I don't have any and I'm too impatient to get good at it on my own. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Honkai Star Rail is an RPG with a lot of style, though also some pretty lackluster voice acting, but I'm definitely more interested in this than I was in Genshin Impact, and it's free, so you may as well try it. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Ixion is the first city builder I've played where I accidentally destroyed the moon, and I really can't say I saw that coming. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Thanks to Casado Games for providing the key to this game. Massive Chalice combines XCOM-style turn-based strategy with a very light form of Crusader King's nation management, and ends up with half a game I hate and half a game that's barely interesting. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Alone in the Dark prologue is barely longer than this video, and it's about half as fun, but at least it's free, I guess. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Hue is a decent puzzle platformer about bringing colour back to a monochrome world, but with controls that are just a little too particular for the speed it requires of you sometimes. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Wheel of Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie retains the catchy music and frankly insane presentation of Katamari Damacy, while adding in new challenges not present in the original release. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. In Other Waters throws you in at the deep end as an ancient AI trying to help a researcher navigate her way through an alien ocean. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Quake 2 RTX is a free upgrade to Quake 2 which enables ray tracing, or the original shareware version if you don't already own it, and it sure does look pretty. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Victor Vran is a dungeon crawler which you should maybe avoid if you hate spiders, but otherwise is pretty fun, though I do wish you could move and attack at the same time. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Ghostwire Tokyo isn't all that interesting, and all I could think of while playing is that it feels weird and how much I'd like to go back to Japan. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Meeple Station is a colony sim which just kind of breaks sometimes, and I couldn't understand why, with a tutorial that's a little too obsessed with meteor showers. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Turbo Golf Racing made me realise there are nowhere near as many Rocket League likes as you'd expect, or maybe there are and I just avoid them because I'm terrible at car sports games. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Curse of the Dead Gods is another roguelike, though for once I didn't die immediately, this time where you battle the dark itself while getting more and more cursed the deeper you get. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Eternal Threads is on the brink of being interesting, but requires a lot more patience than I'm willing to give it, especially after it insults my hometown. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Final Fantasy XVI combines the storytelling you're used to from an RPG with the character action style combat of a Devil May Cry game, and is the most excited I've been for a Final Fantasy game since I started playing 14. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Grime is a dark fantasy Metroidvania which seems pretty fun so far, but if you're bad at parry timing, it's definitely not the game for you. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Honey, I Joined a Cult let me build a snake-worshipping cult, but has a distinct lack of snake-themed decorations for the rooms, which really lets the game down. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. TGV Voyage's Train Simulator isn't even available anymore, which is fine because it's boring as fuck, so you're missing out on absolutely nothing. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Effie has a narrator that never shuts up and locks you out from exploring areas if you progress too far, but shield surfing is a fun way to get around, so it might be worth it just for that. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Hearts of Iron 4 allows you to live out all the World War II fantasies normal people don't have, but I'm sure all the Variaboos out there love it. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Jump Jet Rex gains points for letting you play as a dinosaur with jet boots, and then loses them all by committing the cardinal sin of locking progression behind repeating levels for stars. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Kraken Academy has a sort of zany, offbeat comedy at its core which doesn't really hit for me, but it isn't bad, I don't think. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Ozymandias is a surprisingly fast-paced 4X game, which I thought I was doing pretty well in until I lost. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Shotgun King: The Final Checkmate is a roguelike I actually enjoyed for once, with its chess theming giving it a unique spin on the genre, but I'm not sure I'm exactly sympathetic to the protagonist's journey. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals is a little buggy at launch, but has the same cozy horror vibes as the first game, and I can't wait to see where it goes next. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Pocket Puzzle has an adorable art style and deceptively complex mechanics, and though it sometimes won't accept your puzzle solution, it's so cheap that it's worth it anyway. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Pikmin 4 is the fourth entry in Nintendo's offbeat RTS series, and maybe this time I'll actually finish one, though I know the second one of my Pikmin dies I'll be an inconsolable mess. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Coffee Talk is a relaxing visual novel where you make coffee for your patrons in a fantasy world which looks suspiciously like any normal city during Comic-Con. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. In Bento is about making bento boxes for an adorable kitten, with puzzles that are mostly pretty easy until I stare at my screen for 10 minutes because my brain won't work. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Stonks 9800 is an early access financial simulation set in 1980s Japan, where the first thing I did was get drunk because I had no idea what I was doing, much like my real life foray into stock trading. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Special thanks to Turnox for providing the key to this game. Cat Quest 2 has a playable dog, which some people would think is an improvement over the original, but I don't play Cat Quest to not be a cat. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Merchant of the Skies is an incredibly fast-paced trading game, which feels like it throws you in at the deep end until you realise it's surprisingly shallow. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Railbound lured me in with cute railway dogs and then insulted my intelligence by being too hard for me before the end of the first area. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Alba: A Wildlife Adventure is an adorable game about destroying capitalism with the power of animals and tidying. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Golf Peaks is a golf-centric puzzle game which shows how bad I am at planning ahead, but at least it's pretty forgiving. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Temtem is probably the best Pokemon clone, with some top-tier monster designs, but the battles seem pretty stingy in rewards, barely giving you enough money to even afford a single healing item. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Baldur's Gate 3 seems like it's going to be a fun time based on what everyone else has said, but I can't help feeling like it's missing some form of cat-based race to really keep my attention. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Garden Story is a relaxing adventure game with a cool frog and a lot of friendly fruits, but some pretty restrictive stamina management to begin with. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Word Factory is the exact sort of factory puzzle game I can see myself losing hundreds of hours to, though so far it seems a bit short on the content to see me through it. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Cat Cafe Manager is the perfect game for people who love cats and management sims, and luckily that's me, but it might not hold much interest for other people. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Here Comes Nico makes me wish I could move out and become a professional friend to animals too, though I don't think I have quite the same platforming ability. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Witchy Life Story seems a little dry for a visual novel, and I don't like any of the characters so far bar Devon, but I do feel a deep kinship with the main character. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is a high-octane mech combat game that I thought I had prepared for until a helicopter turned up and proved how utterly wrong I was. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Lemon Cake is a cozy game about running a bakery, but it quickly gets to be a bit of a slog. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Road Warden is like reading a choose-your-own-adventure book and has the similar feature of making me incredibly tired. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Assemble with Care is a story-heavy puzzle game, and while I definitely like it, I can't help but feel I'd enjoy it even more if the controls didn't keep getting in their own way. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Hot Brass is a squad-based real-time tactics game, which is probably a lot of fun with a real squad, but alone it's a surprisingly draining experience. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Shattered Heaven has some frankly baffling voice acting and utterly unlikable characters, but if you want a more linear game that'll still scratch that Slay the Spire itch, it's practically perfect. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Special thanks to Leonardo Interactive for providing the key to this game. Airborne Kingdom has a neat concept of building a city in the skies, but couldn't really capture my attention in the time I spent with it. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Patch Quest lets you capture monsters to use as mounts, which is cool, but it's yet another entry in the immensely flooded roguelike genre which I'll play for an hour and then never touch again. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Unity of Command had me feeling pretty negatively at first, but ended up being kind of fun, and now I think it might be a good way to get into the grand strategy genre. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Evil Genius 2 World Domination has some pretty fun base building and a neat aesthetic, but even after using the in-game speed controls it feels incredibly slow. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Road 96 is a road trip through a totalitarian regime which asks the real tough questions, like how good are you at air hockey? I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is a fantasy-themed Borderlands game, and if that's your thing, that's great, but you're not missing out if you ignore it. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. F-Zero 99 is an even more hectic version of an already hectic game, with 99 races on a high-speed track with vehicles that handle like you're on an ice rink, so it's pretty on brand for F-Zero. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Prehistoric Kingdom has a good basis, but until it's got a campaign after it comes out of early access, I probably won't touch it again. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Yakuza 3 seems kind of weird going back to after the remakes, where everyone now feels a little bit off, but it's the same wonderful bullshit as the last few games have been, so it feels like home. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Four Tales sets itself up as a grand adventure to prevent catastrophe, but it couldn't really get me invested. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Tetris 99 is a cool way of playing Tetris against other people, but it stresses me out to no end, so I probably won't ever touch it again. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Assassin's Creed Mirage so far seems like a return to form for one of my favourite game series. I just desperately hope it doesn't shit the bed later. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Aces and Adventures is a poker-based deck-building roguelite RPG, but I'd have more fun playing poker as normal. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Lords and Villains is a town management sim where I couldn't build myself a house and some of my villagers refused to sleep in theirs, and I have absolutely no idea why. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Spirit of the Island is a survival game with a cute aesthetic, which I initially thought was at least worth a look, until it sketched me out by trying to force me to email the devs with my opinions on the game when I turned it off. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Windy Meadow, A Road Warden Tale is a visual novel set in the world of Road Warden, with a charming art style and the same engrossing narrative style as the original RPG. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Special thanks to Assemble Entertainment for providing the key to this game. Frozenheim is like an overcooked steak, still decent but a bit dry for my liking. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Arcade Paradise is one of the most mind-numbingly boring games I've played in a while, which seems to be built around distracting yourself from playing the game by playing other, smaller games. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Man of Medan is the first entry in Supergiant's Dark Pictures anthology of horror games, and while it's supposed to keep you terrified, I found it succeeded more in being unintentionally hilarious. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Little Hope is our second foray into the Dark Pictures and continues the tradition of not being even slightly scary, but does contain the important lesson to never trust children. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. House of Ashes is our final trip into the Dark Pictures repository for this year, and once again proves that the best thing about these games is the theme song. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. The Quarry is not an entry into the Dark Pictures, despite being by the same developers and playing exactly the same, though this one at least is a little scarier because it involves dealing with an American police officer. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is, confusingly enough, the third Spider-Man game from Insomniac, and this time is larger in all ways: more Spider-Man, expanded map, bigger spectacle, and a whole lot of tentacles. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Cosmos Delivery and Logistics has you travelling the solar system, cheating your way through various poker dens, but I'm terrible at poker, so I doubt I'll ever make it off the first planet. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Special thanks to CDL Studios for providing the key to this game. Chivalry Medieval Warfare is a melee-focused competitive multiplayer game with a surprisingly high player count considering its sequel has been out for over a year, and some frankly terrible voice acting. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Costa Verde Transport Department is a cozy traffic management sim which I could easily relax with for an evening or two, but which has some pretty vague instructions at times. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Special thanks to Nikita Lisitsa for providing the key to this game. Panorama is a relaxing city-building puzzle game with a cute art style and easy-to-grasp mechanics, but which drove me insane with its constantly rotating camera. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Hardspace Shipbreaker is a relaxing game about salvaging ships in a capitalist hellscape where corporations own your very body, but you can spin around in space, so why worry about it? I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Such Art is a game which aims to show that no matter how bad you are at painting, someone out there will want you to draw animals for them. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. The Tenants doesn't follow the family of beloved Scottish actor David Tennant, but is instead a game where you take on the role of the lowest form of humanity, a landlord. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Mr. Prepper is an incredibly slow-paced survival game in which you plan to escape the government by building an underground bunker to store your plants. I'm Holden, and I don't think you should buy it. Sega Bass Fishing lets you live the fantasy of being feared by fish and wanted by women, but we both know neither of those will ever be true. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Trek to Yomi is like playing through an Akira Kurosawa movie, though that does sometimes mean it's a little hard to read the subtitles while in combat. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Rebel Inc. Escalation is about bringing stability to a war-torn region, but its fast pace left me feeling like I didn't really understand the choices I was making. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Tin Can has you trying to survive the depths of space in a rickety old escape pod, but I was more interested in breaking out rather than getting rescued. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. SteamWorld Build is a SteamWorld take on two of my favourite things combined, the city-building genre and the utter classic that is LEGO Rock Raiders, and manages to be a brilliant take on both. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Special thanks to Thunderful for providing the key to this game. Barotrauma forces you into the cramped spaces of a submarine in an ocean where everything seems to want you dead, and while your friends could probably help you survive through it, I don't have any, so I'll just die alone. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Lethal Company is another game that would be great with friends, but solo just reminded me how a death at the hands of a slime monster would be preferable to working for Amazon. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Venba is a narrative-focused game about cooking for your family, and perhaps isn't the best game for me to play before dinner. I'm Holden, and I think you should buy it. Friends vs. Friends has a neat twist on the competitive FPS format, which can be a lot of fun, providing the player base is there to support it, which sadly it seems like it isn't. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Mail Time is a cozy game about delivering mail to all manner of woodland creatures, but which could definitely use a little more polish. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Voidigo provides enough differences to make it stand out from other roguelikes, such as bosses that can appear at any time in any place during your run, but the narrator really puts me off playing. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Juno New Origins left me feeling entirely detached from what was going on with the rockets I built, which made it especially frustrating when things went wrong and I had no idea how to fix them. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Smushy Come Home is the passion project of someone who loves mushrooms perhaps a little too much, but I can't argue when it's this adorable. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. The Pale Beyond puts you in charge of an expedition into the ice fields to look for a missing ship, with a crew who don't seem to like you all that much, except hopefully for the dogs. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Cocoon is weird, and I barely know what's going on, but what I am sure of is that I like it, though I could maybe do without the boss fights. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Dredge would be great if it was just a shallow fishing game, but there's an eldritch horror hiding within its depths that makes it even more compelling. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it. Viewfinder has the same sort of mind-bending dream logic as some of my favourite puzzle games, but also has some very grating and unnecessary dialogue to accompany it. I'm Holden, and I think you should keep an eye on it.